did you make, Ivy?
I made a star with a top with it and a roof. And it's cool and it's really fun to play with.
Awesome. You know what else is really fun?
What?
Memorizing things. Do you like to memorize things?
What does that mean?
Exactly. All right, welcome back. We're at the Everyday Homeschool. I've got Ivy with me here today. She's gonna kind of help me out, just for cuteness factor, right? We gotta make the cuteness factor. That's how I hook you in. I get the cuties on here. So I was public schooled all the way through high school, and then I went to a public or private university. But I didn't really know anything other than public school. So when I started homeschooling, of course, I tried to just mimic public school at home. And it didn't work very well. Yeah, I kind of revolted and went like the other side of the spectrum and did a lot of just creative playing and hands-on projects and didn't make my kids memorize a lot. Still did some workbooky kind of things, still did some math problems and whatnot, but kind of let go of the school at home methodology, which was a good thing, step in the right direction, I think. But I may have overcorrected looking back. You know, and then as time went on, I became aware of the Institute for Excellence in Writing, which I strongly recommend to anyone looking into writing and communications programs. And really was just very pleased with the things I was learning from Andrew Pudewa. I think that's how you say his last name. It's a strange last name, but anyway. He helped me understand really the importance of doing some of the more basic kind of traditional learning, even though it might require some rote memorization. Like those words to me were poison for a long time. Rote memorization. Don't make your kids do any rote memorization. You're going to squash their creativity. You're going to crush their desire to learn. So I kind of just steered clear of that for a while. By the way, I hope the sunshine is not distracting to you. It's such a gorgeous day. We had so much cold the past few days. It's still pretty chilly, and we even had like 3 inches of snow. So we're sitting in the sunshine today. I hope it doesn't bother you. Yeah, so he helped me understand that memorization is actually a gift that you can give your child. Learning, first of all, how to memorize is way more important than what you memorize. Andrew pointed out that students who get the highest scores on the SAT tend to traditionally be students who come from either a drama background or a music background. And why is that? It's because these two groups of students have to spend copious amounts of time memorizing large quantities of data. Right? They have to memorize lines, they have to memorize music, and they have to perform it. So they've got to have it down really, really well. They have to learn it masterfully. So this skill that they've acquired of memorizing and retaining information and then using it to perform is a skill that allows them to score very high on the SATs. And it's a skill that I would like my children to have whether or not they ever take an SAT. So how then, if it's really that important, how can we help them? Oh, by the way, I should also mention
Creation.
Memorizing is important not just because of what you're memorizing, but the fact that it actually grows your brain. Your brain is creating new connections that at first are weak, but with repetition become stronger and stronger. And that creates new pathways in the brain, it creates new connections within the brain, it actually grows your gray matter and creates the stuff of intelligence, according to Andrew. And this stuff of your intelligence is what your future education and future life learning will be built on. So during these formative years, elementary school, middle school, the focus of our schooling isn't really what we're learning, it's how we're learning as we build gray matter for future success. Okay, so now that we know that memorization really is important and really can be useful in your child's education, how can you help your child memorize anything? Have you ever heard it said that you are the product of the shows you watch, the books you read, and the people you meet, or something like that? I agree with that 1000%, except for one thing. You are a product of the books you read, the things you watch, the people you listen to, if you can remember them. So we have to help our kids remember the things that are important, because it does become part of who they are. Not only are we growing their minds by basically increasing the RAM in their CPU, but we're also building character. How do we go about doing that? I've got a few ideas for you, things that I've implemented in our homeschool that may be useful to you in your homeschool. The first one's really boring. It's not super exciting. It's really just the easiest one to implement, I think, and that is just simple repetition. So the first time you hear something, even though you may not remember it long term, there is some kind of connection made. And the more often you hear it, the more you strengthen that connection. How do we help strengthen, how do we help kids learn through repetition? Well, here's one way. For example, when we're learning poetry, the first thing I do is just read it for them out loud. I might read it to them several times while they just do nothing but relax and listen. The next day, what I like to do is create the poem. I print it out for them with many words missing in the poem. And I will read the poem again while they fill in the missing words. And I often have to read the poem 5, 6, 7, 10 times before they have all the blanks filled in, because I leave quite a few words blank. So that actually is a lot of repetition. They get to hear the poem. Already they've heard the poem like 15 times in 2 days. Okay, so we do that. That's kind of our warm-up. Then once we've done that, usually on our 3rd or 4th day with the poem, what I'll have them do is take out a clean sheet of paper that they're going to keep track of, hopefully, over the next few weeks. And I have them write 2 lines of the poem each day while I read them aloud. So the first day I just read the first 2 lines and they write them down. We repeat them several times out loud together, and that's it. Second day, or the next day, they write down the next 2 lines as I read them aloud. Then we go back to the beginning of the poem, read it through the first 4 lines that we've got written down, say them several times, turn the paper over, say it aloud without looking at the paper. Okay, we've got the first 4 lines. And it just continues like that until we've gotten through the whole poem. And hopefully, by the end of that process, we have memorized a poem. And that may take anywhere from a week to 3 weeks. I usually try to have a new poem once every month. Now that's not always enough to help us memorize the poem. So here's another thing I do to help us memorize. And this is great if you have a kinesthetic learner who likes to move their body. What I like to do is assign everybody a line of the poem and have them create hand motions that will help us remember that line of the poem. So for example, from one of our Robert Frost poems, we had the line, and both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Okay, so I remember that one because I think I was responsible for making the hand motions to that line. So it kind of becomes like sign language, right? You're like homemade sign language. And by the time you have everybody's contribution, you got this kind of like cool dance you're doing to the poem, and it's very kinesthetic. So you're learning through motion, and it's actually quite fun. Everybody enjoys that. There are a few other things you can do while you're trying to memorize something. So for example, if you're trying to memorize how to spell a word, this is a great one. You get a ball and you write the word. Now you may want to do this outside. In fact, if you are going outside, I would recommend 2 of these practices be combined. So let me just back up then. Go outside with your kinesthetic learner and give them some fat sidewalk chalk. And have them write on the sidewalk what it is they're trying to memorize, whether it's a multiplication fact or a state and capital or a spelling word. And then between the 2 of you have a ball, stand up and bounce it to each other as you say the thing you're memorizing, like 4, bounce, times, bounce, 4, bounce, equals, bounce, 16. Okay, we've moved outside to help demonstrate some of these techniques that I'm telling you about. And I've got my little helper here. Hi. She's got her sidewalk chalk. So for example, if I was gonna help one of my kids learn a math fact, for example, I know I keep saying that, but you could really do anything. I would first have them write it down with their big fat chalk. So Ruby, can you write 3 times 4? And we're also going to show you how we bounce the ball to help learn this fact. You ready? 3 times
4
equals
12.
Okay, and we would do that several times, and then I maybe have her write another fact and then bounce the ball together some more. So that's just one way that you can get your student writing, get them moving, get them talking, get them singing, all to learn whatever it is they need to learn. Okay, so you're moving while you say things out loud that you're trying to memorize, and it's fun. It helps. It doesn't feel like work. It feels like play. And that's an important point to remember because stress actually inhibits your memorizing. When you feel stressed or anxious about something, it's really difficult to retain information. So help your kids relax, help them enjoy the process by turning things into fun games. And this is one way that you can do that. Here's another thing you can do with your kinesthetic. This was a really fun activity that I've only done one time because it requires a little bit of planning and effort. And I'll definitely do it again because they enjoyed this. So what I did, we were learning states and capitals and we learned them 10 at a time. We're doing it this year again. I write the 10 states up on the whiteboard and then around the room, I write the 10 matching capitals on little pieces of paper. Now up on the whiteboard where the states are written, I attach a string with some tape, and then that string has to be long enough to reach wherever the matching capital is around the room. So you've got to kind of plan it out. You got to make sure that your string is long enough to get to the answer. So then the kids take turn going up to the board, picking a state, grabbing the string, and hunting through the room to find the capital it matches and stick it with a piece of tape to the answer they find. Now what's cool about this, when you have all 10 of them strung out over the room, it makes this really cool kind of web, depending on how large a space you have. And then it's kind of just fun to invite the kids to weave their way through the web without disturbing it. It's kind of like a Mission Impossible kind of thing. It does take time, it's a little bit messy, but if you've got some time and you don't care about the mess, I suggest it. It was really fun. Let me tell you about a couple games that we've played to help the kids memorize things. Okay, so this game I'm going to show you can have any name that you like. We've called it Unicorn in the past. I think the current version of it is called Kaboom. Whatever word is appealing to your child, go ahead and pick that word. If you've got little girls that love unicorns, that's a good one. If you have boys that like something else, call it something else. So get an old can, just that you've used in the kitchen and is empty. Fill it full of popsicle sticks and write down whatever it is you're learning on each one. So this version of it has multiplication facts written on it. If you can read that. So that one says 6 times 3, I think. 6 times 3. So what we do is I pull out a stick, I read the math fact for whoever is having a turn. If they answer correctly, they get to keep the stick and that's a point. If they don't answer correctly, it just goes back in the can. And I just pick one without looking, and we keep going around answering until I pick one that says, oh, where'd it go? Kaboom! Okay. So if it's your turn, when I pull out a kaboom, you lose all of your sticks. They all go back in the can and the game progresses. So there are several of these. There's maybe like 10 kabooms in there. You can add more if you want the game to go longer or less if you want the game to be shorter. And it really makes it fun because it can become anyone's game. The person who is winning may suddenly find themselves in last place if they get a kaboom. So it gives everyone a chance because it's kind of a game of luck in some ways. So this is a game we can all play together, even with my youngins. I just help them out with the answers a little bit. Okay, another game, of course, is just really, really simple. It's called Multo. I got this game from my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Verge, who taught at the Thomaston Grammar School. I was living in Thomaston, Maine at the time. And she, every Friday afternoon, we all looked forward to Friday afternoon because we would get to play Multo, which is basically just bingo with multiplication facts. And here we are again studying multiplication facts in another way. We spend quite a bit of time learning multiplication facts because if kids know their math facts, they end up enjoying math so much more. When kids don't know their math facts and don't have them down cold, they actually kind of hate math because it's so burdensome and tedious. When they know their facts, everything just flows so much faster. So learning the facts by rote through games, whatever it is, Really, like, I just would stress that so much. It's really important. Okay, so we just play like bingo, right? I have a bunch of, I could even just use these sticks. Like I could pull out these sticks. If you have the answer on the board, and I just made these myself, really simple. I laminated them so I could use them longer and numbered them. And then if you have the answer, you place a marker on it. We use these little plastic chips. You can use anything you want, like Cheerios or chocolate chips or pieces of paper, or you could color them in. It doesn't matter. And it works just like bingo. Okay. So if you've ever played the game Spoons, you can use that game to help you memorize lots of different things. The version I made for my kids to help them memorize something. Okay, so I don't actually use my laminator very much. I used to use it a ton back in the beginning when I was making all kinds of crazy things. So it seems silly that I'm showing you 2 laminated things in one video because I hardly ever use it. But I did use it to make these cards that we play spoons with. Okay, so what I have my kids memorizing here is something that we refer to as the 13 Articles of Faith. And those are simply real short pieces of information that state 13 tenets of our faith, things that we believe. Okay, and these are things that we want our kids to know and understand about our faith. So for example, number 1 is, we believe in God, the eternal Father, and in his Son, Jesus Christ, and in the Holy Ghost. All right, so that's Article of Faith number 1. There are 13 of them. Each Article of Faith is split up into 3 sections. So 3 cards make a set. Whoops, I've got 4. Here's 3, okay? So 3 cards make a set. And there are words on them. These don't make a set, like these don't go together, but there are 3 for each article. So when the kids are playing spoons, and I'm not gonna explain how to play spoons. I'm sure you can look it up. How do you play spoons? It's super fun. The kids love it. It's really exciting. It's very competitive and just fun. So you could use this for anything. You could use it to, you could have 3 consecutive lines of a poem. You could have 3 consecutive lines of the Gettysburg Address. You could have 3 states and capitals that match together to make a set. Whatever it is that you're learning, you would want to put them together in a set. You could have 2 cards that make a set, 3 cards that make a set, 4 cards that make a set. Doesn't matter how many cards are in the set. But playing spoons to memorize things is awesome. About using music to help your kids memorize things.
Yellow is the sun.
Not yet, Chica. In 1st grade, I had a teacher named Mrs. Walton who taught us the months of the year with a song, and I still remember that song, and I have taught it to every single one of my kids as they learned it in their math programs. So we're gonna sing it for you now. January, February, March, and April. For math, we use the Right Start program for kids all the way up until about 5th grade, 6th grade, somewhere there, and then we switch over to something else when they do pre-algebra. But that song, the Right Start math program, has some great songs to help kids who are just getting started with their math facts. So I'm sure Ruby remembers it from when she was in math. Ivy is just now learning these songs. She's just getting started.
Okay, so, Mommy, let me sing it by myself.
Oh, we get a solo. Okay. Ready, go.
Yellow is the sun, 6 is 5 and 1.
Why is the sky so blue? 7 is 5 and 2. Salty is the sea, 8 is 5 and 3. Hear the thunder roar, 9 is 5 and 4. Ducks will swim and die, 10 is 5 and 5. used music to help us memorize the 50 states in alphabetical order. It's been a long time since we sang that song, but I will link to the song that we used. It's on YouTube. We used music to help us memorize things like the periodic table, also those 13 articles of faith that I mentioned earlier. Each one of those has a song. In fact, why don't we sing number 1, because I did number 1. We believe in God, the eternal Father, and in His Son, Jesus Christ, and in the Holy Ghost. Very nice. Okay, so music, as you can see, it really helps whatever you're learning become part of who you are. Music stays with you forever, right? It really does. So I love learning things to music. All right, and one last method that I'm going to share with you about how to help your kids memorize things is based on the idea that when we associate a memory with a very strong emotion, we are likely to remember it much better and for longer. So how do we associate in just everyday learning? How do we associate things with emotion? Well, for me, that's where literature comes into this. I really love reading kids really poignant stories that have lessons I hope they will never forget. For example, what did we just finish reading? Friedrich. Let me go get it so I can. The book that we just finished in our morning read aloud. Friedrich. I will link to it below. It is by Hans Peter Richter. It says the classic novel of the Holocaust. Deeply felt, unforgettable. I love that because that's exactly what I was talking about. When you feel a story really deeply, you never forget it. It becomes part of who you are. And I am not ashamed to say that when I was talking to the kids or discussing this book after we just finished it, what did I do? Oh, I don't know. I cried talking to you guys about. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's because I cry so often. It's like, pff, Mom's crying again. It's true. I often cry during our morning discussions, don't I? Because the things that we discuss are so important to me, and the lessons in this book are so poignant and so unforgettable. They will. Well, this book just helped us discuss things that were emotional, at least for me. So I know I'm going to remember this book, and I hope that you guys will too, because of the strong feelings that we had around it. So I love reading historical fiction, and I don't think this was even historical fiction. I think this was just historical. It's written like a diary about the Holocaust and what it was really like for families who lived through it. So I recommend this book if you need a new read aloud. It's not very long. It's only, let's see, 136 pages, and it's a quick read. The chapters are really short. So just as we're going to give you some proof that some of these techniques actually work by reciting some poetry for you that we have learned this year. So first of all, let's go through the poems that we have learned this year. We've learned so far Alphabet Stew, two Robert Frost poems, one I forget the title of.
Two Roads Diverge.
Yeah, that one. Two Roads Diverge, but the other one was
Walking Through the Woods on a Snowy Evening.
Yeah, Woods in a Snowy Evening, something like that. One that you probably don't know, it's called The Difference. And then we memorized Shakespeare's Sonnet 116. And we are currently working on Invictus.
By William E. Henley.
Right there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm going to let Ruby pick a poem, and we're going to recite it for you. Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. Mm-hmm. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow.
My little
horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. Oh my goodness, the reflection on your face makes you look like an angel. You are glowing! job.
Thanks.
Okay, and that's just one. Should we go on?
No.
No, we'll spare you. Okay, but I promise you we know more poems.
Yeah, we do.
We really do. Again, so I'm here with Sophia. This is my 9th grader this year. She's an awesome student, and we've been working really hard all day in the yard doing
Yard work?
yard work. Anyway, so as I was editing the videos for this YouTube video, I realized that I had left out 2 really important techniques for helping your kids memorize things. So one of them I'm going to have Sophie demonstrate for you because she is super good at memorizing things and she's really good at retaining information. So one of them is using mnemonic devices to help you remember maybe the order of things or a list of things. And when we were studying astronomy, like maybe 6 years ago, we made up a sentence to help us remember the order of the planets. So I asked Sophie off camera just a minute ago if she could remember, and she whipped it right out. So I'm going to have her say it for you again. What is it?
My very eager monster jumped silently under nasty pillows.
There you go. And
so that's Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Saturn, what?
We can do this. Ready?
So it's
Mercury, Venus,
Venus,
Earth, Mars, Saturn,
Jupiter,
Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. We
My
got it.
very eager monster jumped silently under nasty pillows.
Always and forever. But that sentence includes Pluto, which is debatable these days as to whether or not it actually is a planet.
Yeah, which is pillows.
P for pillows, P for Pluto. We're going with it. Okay. So that actually helps lead us into the very last thing I was going to talk about, because that sentence is memorable because you see a very eager little monster jumping under your nasty pillow. Is that not right?
Yeah.
You see it in your mind. So the last technique then is visualization, creating an image in your mind that helps you remember information. We actually did this just the other day when we were studying the states and capitals. We were having a really hard time remembering the capital of Nebraska, which is Lincoln. And I said to the kids, okay, think of Abraham Lincoln and his big, tall, black hat. And it's just peeking up over the top of some corn, like in a big field of corn. You can see his hat, and it's sticking out over the tops of the corn. Okay, so that's Lincoln. And there's lots of corn in Nebraska, right? Isn't it not the corn husker state?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's easy to remember that.
Right. It creates an image in your mind that helps you retain the information. So helping your kids visualize, making pictures is a really great way to help them remember something that they need to learn. I'm standing here by my indoor garden nursery. This is the first time I've been able to grow plants inside before planting things outside. And it's kind of fun. It's not super successful all the time. I've lost some plants already, but we're trying. Anyway, I wanted to just kind of recap all the different ways we talked about to help your kids memorize things. So, in no particular order, they are repetition, writing things down, saying things aloud, playing games, songs, music, movement and motion. Oh yes, feelings, attaching learning to emotion, mnemonic devices, and visualization. So those are lots of techniques that you have in your toolbox to help you with your memorization tasks. Hopefully that'll help you help your kids as they memorize whatever it is they need to learn. Thanks. We're gonna get on with our dinner. This was a little video pause during our dinner. What are you having for dinner, Soph?
Taco salad.
Taco salad. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we hope that this was helpful to you and your family, to your homeschool. We appreciate you watching the Everyday Homeschool, and we'll see you on the next one. Until then, just keep learning.